Hello and welcome into the latest edition of Mountaineer Mafia. This week we're going to do a little quick review of the Monroe game and the Georgia Southern game. Haven't gotten to the review part before the next week's game starts lately. So we'll go back and talk about some of that, and then we'll get into this week's preview and the rest of the Sun Belt slate. So start with University of Louisiana Monroe. We went down there, looking to continue the winning streak we were on, and didn't start out so great. They scored first, we came back, tied it up, actually took the lead, then they took the lead back again at 14-10, and it looked like we might have a game on our hands, and I don't think a lot of us expected that. I think a lot of us expected to continue our domination, and I think the major turning point in that game that turned it over to our favor was actually the Middleton ejection. He came across and put a late hit on a wide receiver. I don't agree with the ejection. I thought it was shoulder into the player and it wasn't into the head of the player. But quick look for an official on the field. I don't really not understand the flag. I mean, you see why it was thrown. It looks bad in live action. But once the replay was shown, I didn't think he was going to get ejected. He did. And I think the defense really turned it on at that point. I think they were upset with that call. I think they really looked toward Middleton as a leader, and I think they wanted to play better and get everything back in line as fast as possible after that happened in this game. And I really think that turned this whole game around. I don't know if it helped them to round up the troops on, these refs are looking for us, and they're looking to call stuff against us. Whatever it was exactly that turned it around, I really do think it happened right at that moment. And after that, it was just lights out, and you couldn't ask for much better play. And then we rolled into the Thursday night matchup with Georgia Southern. So overall, I think we had a great crowd. A little bit of what people were saying earlier in the week, that it might not be a sellout, but the people that are there are going to be the ones who care and the ones that cheered loudly, and it's definitely what we got. And I think it was still close to a sellout. I looked over at one point and the hill seemed to be packed, which has to look fantastic on TV. I haven't had a chance to go back and watch it a second time, but I do want to see what it looked like on the coverage from ESPNU's version. But live, I'll tell you what, it was great. About the only thing that was a disappointment was the opening drive. They ran it right down our throats, and we had to regroup. But you know what? Almost the same thing as the Monroe game. It was something there that, I don't know, credit to the coaches, credit to the team leaders. I don't know who exactly it was that turned it around, but they regrouped these guys so well, and it happened 2 games in a row. That's very important. This team didn't have that last year, at least the first half of the year when we were 1-5. Probably started to gain some of that momentum last year, and definitely have taken it into this year. So those games early on, you could lose a game that way. If you can't get your head straight and you can't get back into it and settle down and play calmly, you're just going to be out of it. And these guys don't do that. They just block everything out and come to the next play, come to the next drive, and it's all new, and it's working fantastically. And I think part of that is just coaching, and part of it is team leaders. But again, I think all together that this is a great team. After that first drive, we really settled in. Lamb was throwing well, running backs were running well, defense just started shutting everything that Georgia Southern was trying to do, just totally shut it down. The good thing about Georgia Southern is their throwing game is pretty terrible. Even when they got the completed passes, they weren't getting really any there were no yards after catch. Their quarterback doesn't throw well, so luckily, even if their wide receivers were open, they were immediately falling to the ground. They have to make the catch, or falling out of bounds immediately, and that helped defensively, even when we had some missed assignments or some guys wide open. And so overall, these last 2 games, I don't really think you could ask for much better performance from our guys, especially on that Thursday night game on a short week like that. So with that said, I'm just going through those videos really. We got Troy coming up this week, and they had a big win last week over New Mexico State. which is great for them. However, New Mexico State hasn't won a game on the season, so it's only worth so much in my book. Their only other win on the season for Troy was against Charleston Southern, which some of you may know and remember that is an FCS team. So, they're not beating down any doors as far as big wins go. They got a team they've beaten that's winless and a team from a lower division that they've beaten. Now, on the flip side of that, they have played 3 Power 5 schools in NC State, Mississippi State, and Wisconsin. So take that for what it's worth as well. You don't want to bypass that completely. They probably shouldn't have had a shot in any 3 of those games. And none of those 3 games were close. Wisconsin totally blew them out. I think that was the worst score they had, was 24-3. But you got to think about their record a little bit. Maybe they've come together a little bit. Maybe they're starting to play a little bit better. Their coach has mentioned that they're coming all the way from New Mexico State this past weekend, all the way to Boone this weekend. So they're coming one side of the country to the other, essentially. Not an easy travel, and we'll see how they respond to it. It seems like they may try and key on their running back. They think he's a pretty good back. Their coach has said that with a little bit better blocking throughout the season, he thinks that their back could be one of the best in the conference. I think Marcus Cox would like to debate that, and I think he'll show why he is the best in the conference, maybe other than the statistical leaders from Georgia Southern. But as far as a actual back that gets into something other than the triple option, which is so run heavy, that statistics are going to be in their favor, Georgia Southern. I think that Marcus is going to have a great game this week again against Troy. And their wideouts, on their wideout side, it seem a little bit similar to ODU from what I've seen. They have some decent size, but they have about average hands to below average hands. So I don't see our defense getting burnt by them too badly. But they probably will make a few plays. This team's not terrible. They're not as bad as their record shows, but again, the teams they have beaten are not really there yet. So we'll be their best test conference-wise so far this season. So I think Taylor's going to have another great game. I will say this, one thing that I've noticed in the last couple games is occasionally, not too bad, he gets a little happy feet in the pocket there and gets out of the pocket a little too fast, and maybe you can try and calm that down. I don't know how much pressure Troy's going to bring in that aspect, but it's about the only thing really that I can key on as a pretty big building block for Taylor to continue growing and maturing in his development. So with that, we'll get into the Sun Belt slate. Tonight, Georgia Southern takes on Texas State. It's a home game for Georgia Southern. They're going to be looking to get back on track after last week's debacle at our place. I don't see any real game here tonight. Georgia Southern's going to win, and win big in this one, and get back in the right place for their program. Texas State's just a weaker team, and they're just not there yet. They've got some growing to do in that capacity. Next up, we've got Monroe versus Lafayette in Battle of Louisiana. I think Lafayette bounces back a little bit from last week when they lost to Arkansas State. They were trying to come back from a deficit that they couldn't overcome, but I think this week they'll bounce back, play better, and get the win over Monroe. After that, we got Georgia State heading to Arkansas State, which we need to keep an eye on this one as best we can so we know a little bit about what we're facing next week. I think Arkansas State takes this one pretty easily. Much like us, they're pretty well-rounded offensively. They throw and pass the ball pretty well. Defensively, they're pretty good. So I don't think Georgia State poses any real threat here, and I'll go with Arkansas State as the winner for this one. And last up, we've got Idaho Vandals taking on the New Mexico State Aggies. And Idaho's been playing better as of late. I don't think they're going to totally flip it around and shock the world or anything, but they have been playing better, and they're playing a really bad team in New Mexico State. So I expect that to continue, and Idaho to take this one. So until next time, guys, see you later.